screening presented by Eperformance in collaboration with Microsoft. Next slide. So I want to start by talking about the IDIS project, which led to the development of Security Plus, a personnel security app for D365. Recent advancements in cloud-based case management technologies present an opportunity to apply advanced automation to security screening and security file management processes, leading to increased efficiency and expedited security review timelines. The IDIS project was focused on achieving this result by applying a world-leading case management technology, Microsoft Dynamics 365, as a foundation tool for building a personnel security app. And more recently, the IDIS project has aligned its development roadmap with the ISST modernization project, which is a public works or PSPC project to modernize contract security and control goods security, reaching levels of top secret, which allows us on this project to take this app to higher levels of security, and we'll talk a bit more about that. So the IDIS project is sponsored by Microsoft and Eperformance, who we have co-invested in cooperation with Government of Canada Department. So next slide, Todd. So the challenge we're hearing from Government of Canada departments, government agencies go to great lengths to protect the security of people and information involved in the day-to-day business of serving the public. Employee security screening and security file management is an important element of maintaining secure government operations. It involves considerable process and due diligence, including detailed security application forms, live scan fingerprinting, criminal record checks, secure level processing of an interdepartment transfer of security files, and security incident management. And with increasing worldwide focus on information security, government agencies are feeling more and more pressure to modernize their approach to personnel security. Next slide. So this slide talks a bit about the day in life of a personnel security office. This was something that was presented to us by INAC, one of the Government of Canada departments that we work with in the development of the Security Plus app. It kind of gives you an idea of what a personnel security app like this can do. In fact, what we'll be demonstrating to you today. So the current process of screening new staff to determine whether an individual will present or become a security concern often starts with a hiring official in a department. The hiring official makes a request to the security department for the initial fingerprinting, criminal record checks, and credit checks for new recruits. A successful assessment at this stage may result in achieving reliability status for the candidate, leading to the next stage of processing, where the candidate must complete a detailed security application for review by the department's personnel security officer, who will review a profile of the candidate, determine whether the candidate can be approved to the required security level. During this stage, personnel security officials can spend considerable time reviewing, verifying, and requesting further information to complete the necessary due diligence for the security assessment. This process is often burdened with manual activity that can lead to delays in hiring. Moreover, when subsequent requests for security renewals or requests from employees transferring to other departments, the process must be repeated. In many cases, the facility does not exist to reuse that applicant information to make the transfer renewal simpler. So that gives you an idea of a typical process in a personnel security office. So next slide. So from the IDIS project, the Security Plus app was developed. It's a cloud-based security management application that leverages Microsoft Dynamics to provide security personnel with a suite of capabilities designed to monitor, manage, and report on risk to an organization, its people, and its assets. In the next slide, we'll kind of look at an overview of the features of Security Plus. It, of course, adheres to Government of Canada standards. I know there's some folks on the call today that are from other government agencies, municipal and provincial. And we've looked at various government levels, and we find that the Government of Canada tends to be a little more rigorous and robust than most. So it tends to cover off all the requirements of the different agencies that we've dealt with so far. But in the case of Government of Canada, it provides application forms that meet the standards for the 33023, which is a security assessment application, or the 33060, a more detailed secret level assessment application form. But this tool, of course, is designed to support any type of application form. So it provides, out of the box samples of fairly complete assessment forms, but they can be tailored to the unique requirements of an individual organization. Security Plus is currently operating at a protected B, PBMN level for enhanced reliability screening. But due to our new alignment with IST to look at a more advanced design that will support a higher level of security to meet secret and top secret. And for those of you who've ever worked in this area of security, this means addressing over 400 security controls that are identified in the ITSP 33 to meet the requirements of managing information that reaches that level of top secret. So it's a non-trivial process. But the resulting application that we're looking at would meet these requirements and, of course, be very robust to meet most government agencies' requirements. So Security Plus automates the security screening request process, of course, from end to end, and Todd will show you that in a demonstration. It provides status tracking for security applicants, so they don't have to try and call into somebody. They can simply go to a portal that is provided and see the status of their application, or see the history of everything that they put into the system, like previous application forms, and reuse that information, etc. It maintains a complete security file on individuals, and there's the ability to transfer that security file between the departments, which is a bit of a challenge these days, as we mentioned previously with some agencies. So it also provides support for security incident management, incident intake, investigation, and incident history. So it integrates with related security systems. Fingerprinting is a big part of this process now. There's 4 or 5 fingerprinting technologies and agencies associated with Government of Canada security, for example, and this tool is designed to integrate with all of them and other types of related technologies like card production and HR systems, etc. So being a D365 application, it also has the power of Microsoft D365 to provide all kinds of information in terms of dashboards and very flexible reporting. So next slide, I think, takes us to the demonstration. So over to you, Todd.
Thank you very much, Eric. Just before we start the demo, I'm going to remind everybody that we are recording this call for those of you who joined a little bit late. If there are any questions that arise during the demo, please feel free to type them into the chat window. We're actually joined by Daniela Mayer today. She was a business analyst who worked on the Security Plus tool, and she will be kind of compositing those into a list. Unfortunately, I also have some competing priorities with Daniela today, so she might not be there the entire time, but I can pick that up after the fact. So I'm just going to share my screen now. And hopefully everybody can see what appears to be a dash box with sandbox up at the top. So I'm going to be going over that scenario that Eric kind of addressed at the beginning, basically a day in the life, and showing you how we've leveraged Dynamics and the Power Apps portal to kind of bring in the information into kind of that digital verse such that it can be acted upon, tracked, and basically identify some efficiencies that we are trying to give both the hiring officials, the security officers, and indeed the end users who have to fill out these security forms. So we're going to start with the hiring official, and we're going to start within Dynamics. So here, this is basically the D365 version. So Dynamics 365, it is on the cloud. So it's all fully online, doesn't have to sit in a data center associated with your department or industry. And basically what I have down the left side is just a list of elements that are kind of related in, and then in the center we have a dashboard. And what we really try to do, we default the loading screen to the dashboards for a particular role, in this case the hiring official. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to tell that role What do I have to do today? So basically trying to ensure that they have all the information that's available to them. So in terms of the hiring official, we're basically joining them at the end of their process of hiring an individual. So a person has already been hired to fill a role in their department or agency, and basically they require a security screening. So the hiring official will actually create a case file and in this case issue an invitation. So I'm going to go here to case files. This is just a list of all of the active case files within the system, and we'll see a little bit later how the security officer will actually go through these things. So really at a very high level, this is now representing the 33023 form section A. So this is basically information about the job that has to be completed by the actual hiring official. It basically just has the particulars of the job, how long it is it a contract, is it a term, how long is it be, what is the reason for the person who is being hired. So basically what this is just to confirm that the information of the job for the individual is captured here. The nice thing about this is that while the hiring official is the individual who actually fills this out, we will be repeating this back to the end user, and I will show you that in just 1 second, what they actually are going to see in this context. So it's just basically that positive reinforcement when they get into the portal to make sure that they're following up the information according to the correct job that they've actually received. So in this case, we do have the ability to kind of cover all the different types of securities requests that might be out there. In this particular instance, we're going to go through a new, but we can also handle an upgrade. So examples when somebody wants to go from, say, eligible and they've changed jobs and they now go to secret, we will be able to handle that. As the majority of you are no doubt aware, security verifications don't last forever, so they're going to have to be renewed at some point. We also track that date within the context of our system and can assist with informing basically the individuals that are responsible to ensure that everybody has their security status across the organization. We can alert them prior to the security status basically expiring. So in this case, I'm going to select new. In terms of security level, as Eric did indicate, we do reliability, and eventually we'll be going all the way up to top secret once we get that VH certification with the 400 plus security points. What we will do today, though, just for simplicity's sake, is that we will do the reliability status. You can see here that we've automatically selected the 33023, and this really relates to that kind of federal government context where reliability status requires the 33023, and then going any higher, you'll actually require the 33060. For those who aren't familiar with the 330 series of forms, just know that the 23 is a little less detailed than the 60. That's basically the difference between that. You just have to provide a little bit more detail when you're actually going for a higher security level, as you would no doubt expect that would occur. The last thing that I basically have to do to complete this section, and this is something that's actually unique to the system, is just to determine where this individual is going to be filling out the information. So in this case, I have the selection of portal or manual. If I select portal, that means that we are going to send out this case file. We're basically going to create an invitation to the end user, and they will be filling this application out electronically. In most cases, there's a lot of departments that are still dealing with paper entry. And if I was to get a paper entry, we can still input the information and we can put it in manual. That way is we still have the ability to track the actual screening requests. Assuming that they are processed and move forward, they become part of the security file. And it's just also there so all of your data can be reported once it's into the system, because Dynamics at the heart of it really is a very powerful reporting tool in addition to a data entry tool. And there are infinite benefits once you actually are able to centralize your data and report across it that way. So I'm going to select portal. And then finally, I'm just going to create just a new contact for today. So example user, use the date so we're unique. In this case, I'm not going to provide an email address, but if I do provide an email address, we would obviously be able to exchange all of this information via email. I'm going to go ahead and click save just so we can associate in an invitation. So I am now going to click on a new invite. So this is something that actually comes out of the box with Microsoft Dynamics that we are leveraging for the Security Plus tool. The only thing really that I have to do here is provide an expiration date. This, and I'll go back to this in just a little bit, would help the hiring official actually manage who is in the system and who has yet to actually provide information. So once I save that invitation, I'm actually going to get this big long character string called my invitation code. Now, we obviously have the ability to email this to the end user, and we can actually put it in line so they can just click on a link, a registered here link, if you will. But for purposes of the demo, I'm just going to copy it, and I'm going to leave the Dynamics section, and I'm going to go into the actual portal. So this is the portal. Again, we're in our Power Apps portal, so this is on the cloud. And in this particular case, we are using what is called the WET6 or Web Experience Toolkit. That's something that's provided by the Government of Canada. And really what that does is it controls the look and feel, so it looks consistent with all the other government departments. It also gives you a whole bunch of things out of the box like accessibility and web safe colors, that whole thing. It also has a very nice mobile interface. That said, if you aren't the federal government and you want a portal to have your look and feel, we have a very easily tool in the background that allows us to kind of skin the portal as per your actual design. So no doubt you would have a public-facing website, and you would have some type of design department or graphics or a consistent look and feel that you would want to apply. We can absolutely take that look and feel and apply it across as required. So I'm going to go ahead and log in and register. Now, this is, again, we're using an out-of-the-box sort of login, but we do have the ability to integrate with, various single sign-on solutions. There is a very robust SDK that is a software developer kit underneath the hood, so we can absolutely integrate with what is out there at this particular point. So in the case of the federal government, I'm talking things like GC Key, and that sort of thing. And then just to get a little more technical, we can do Civilith. We can go and integrate in with third-party providers like CRA. You would be familiar with being able to log in with your bank provider, that sort of thing. So those are all kind of value-add things that we can do with the SDK. So I'm going to input my registration code, and I'm going to click on register. It's going to go away Bubble Insurance, so it does recognize my user code. So it is asking me for my email address, and then to input my username and password. So I'm just going to go quickly do that. And again, if you're using a single sign-on, you wouldn't have to do this in that case. So I'm going to click register. It's going to bubble and churn away again and create my user in the back end. And then it's going to basically present my profile. So this is my user profile. If I want to have information here, we can update that, indicate the preferred language or anything about that. We can add and subtract fields here, such as to match your requirements. Everything you see here is very configurable. And doesn't necessarily require a developer, depending on the complexity of the requirement that you're having to implement. So if I click on home, here we are with my screening request. So we can see here that this was the request ID that I put. It is a reliability status as that I'd indicated. We are active, and we basically just came up and we're good to go. So if I click on my details, basically what is going to happen now is we are going to show the 33023 form. So obviously, depending on your security level that you've requested, here we have all of this information that you saw me filling out in the Dynamics backend, and basically that's just kind of regurgitating the information. And then we come into the area where we would actually be inputting the data. Now, because watching me fill out a form while I'm trying to talk is a little bit boring, I'm going to go ahead and log in with one that I created earlier, and we can just review the data that we inputted. So here we have the same type of reliability status. And I'm going to click on details again. We have the administration information, and then we actually fill out the information as it goes down. So here you can see biological information that comes out. We obviously have all the kind of standard form requirements, so we can validate that an email address has been added. We can validate the mandatory things. Based on inputted variables, we can hide and show. So that actually ensures that instead of having that kind of if you said yes in this box, then please fill out this. We can have a more linear and dynamic flow that kind of pushes you through the application, and it basically makes sure that you answer everything required of you for that particular thing. The nice thing there is that it not only benefits the end user for being a much simpler form to fill out, so there's not a lot of noise. They're only filling out things that are relevant to them. It also helps the security officer on the back end that little bit more because they don't have to kind of interpret the form anymore. They're just looking at data and doing their evaluation. It helps them to get to their job quicker. So in terms of the residency information, we do have the functionality that basically validates the residency information and the duration of the residency. So for those unfamiliar with it, for the 330.23, an individual has to provide 5 years of residency information. So here you can see that I've provided more than enough, but we do have the ability to actually have that positive feedback for the end user should they not have the required history of that, or they have gaps within that history. And then we basically can continue down the form. We get into the consent and validation. So effectively, this is just the yes or no checkboxes that are at the end, where an individual would have to do that. We also have the ability to upload identification. So in this case, I've obviously haven't uploaded identification. I've clearly put a picture of my dog up. But that just kind of gives you the example of somebody can take a picture of their license and actually provide it as identification as required by the system. Finally, we get down to the privacy statement. So since I've already completed this, I've already agreed to this, but you can see here that we have the ability to actually do the residency validation as well, should we absolutely need to. Once we've agreed to the condition, by the way, we actually do record the date. It just gives that positive reinforcement to the end user that they are agreeing to something, and then it kind of does a physical stamp of the date, just that positive reinforcement that they are committing to the actual contents of the statement, the Privacy Act statement, etc. So once we actually click on submit, we will get a confirmation. We're happy with all the information. And then we will get some positive reinforcement. We're back to the security screening request page, and you can see here that we are now in a submitted status. So if I now leave from the portal here and I go back into Dynamics, and I will just click back into the dashboard, and we will now play the role of a security officer. So again, for a security officer, we would start with this dashboard. I'm actually an administrator user, which is why I can switch freely between the hiring official and the security officer. Incidentally, Dynamics does have a very robust role model, and we do have individual roles defined for those two parties. The nice thing there is, depending on the size of your security organization or the part of your organization that deals with security, you can have one individual or multiple individuals play a single role, or you can have one individual play multiple roles. It really depends on how big you are. And we've talked to different departments to indicate that, there are some very large security organizations that have, tens of security officers, and there are very small security organizations where individuals would have to play that. So we've configured those roles such that they can be applied to one or many people, or in the case of a very small security contingent, they would have multiple roles. So here again, we're seeing the kind of what do I have to do today being answered. In this case, we do leverage the charts that Dynamics is capable of putting out. We do have the ability to actually break these out, and you can see them in a very larger fashion, and you can even view the records. And then when you click on the part of the pie, it will actually indicate what records comprise of that information. The benefit there being that you can actually disseminate the information and get down to the things very quickly. So if you have a request from your higher ups regarding something, you can get to that information very quickly in a number of different ways. So I'm going to click on case files, and we have the active case files going on, and you can see here that this is my example user. So we've already created that, and then there's my sample user. So that's the one that I actually submitted into the system. So here you can see that information is available to us again. And if I click on my form submission, this is where all of my form submission is now going to be. So here you can see all the information that I actually provided in the portal, my residency information, and what have you. So this is basically the first step for that particular security officer to kind of go through and review the actual application is that they've seen it. We see this as kind of a gate for the security officer. So they basically want to make sure that the application is complete, all the information is there to provide it. If it is not there, we do have the ability to go back into the form submission and reopen up the application into the portal again, such that the user can actually act upon it. We'll call that basically an amendment. So if I was to actually click on here and click activate and then provide some feedback, then that feedback would then be visible to that end user in the portal. And we can also trigger an email at that point to indicate to the end user that there is something that they actually have to action within the context of the portal. We also have the ability with notifications, by the way, to do a notification center, much like the CRA functionality in their notification center. When you're filling out your taxes, you'll notice that CRA doesn't actually communicate anything in emails. They only send you a notification that you need to check their website. So since this is a secure system and it is dealing with security elements, we can avoid actually sending anything in email, should that be a concern of yours and or a requirement that you actually have to fulfill. So I'm just going to go back to my case files now, and we'll go into my under review. So you can see here across the top, we actually track the status of a given record. So this is kind of a workflow that we've come up with. Once you've taken the intake of the form, we come into the under review section, where we think the adjudication would be going on or ready for adjudication. So once we've done that kind of review of the actual application, we'll go to the next stage and we'll be ready for the adjudication. Basically what would happen there is we would go into our verifications and decisions section. Now, we developed this with the help of INAC, so Indigenous, I can't remember what the acronym stands for. I can only remember the old version. But it was a government department that assisted us to actually develop this particular functionality. The thing here is that we have the ability, again, through the SDK to integrate with the RCMP, with the credit check functionality, and make a automated adjudication process. But in this case, working with INAC, we actually had to basically have an offline activity that goes on. In the cases of their RCMP, they have a specific computer in a specific secure space that runs specific software that is accessible by specific people. So they basically have an offline activity where they would go and record what they had to do, and they would check it here. So you can see here that I've already checked it, because this is one thing that I did earlier. And on checking it, you can actually see the date that I checked it on, any comments that I made, and you can see who actually did that check. Again, this is just to kind of reinforce the fact that the system is kind of auditing what's going on, and your name now belongs to that action. So that just helps the managers of those security officers, making sure that the security officers are still very much aware of what's going on. So once we've actually done the processing, we would next move on to the decision. So again, this is another role that can potentially be in the system, that of a decision maker. So we can have a security officer who is indicated as a decision maker. We can have a separate decision maker into the system. It really depends on what your exact adjudication process is within your organization. Here, they basically would make the question whether or not that the security status was granted. We basically take all of the decision comments made on the verification and decision tab and kind of correlate them and present them out. So basically, they can go ahead and make a recommendation of decision based on that. Once everything is done, we can close out the decision and we can close out the actual application. And then we would click what we call a flow, which is just a workflow to kind of work in the background to resolve the case. What we would do in resolving the case is we would actually be looking at a security file. So in the case of when the individual is a new security screening, we would create the security file. If a security file would already exist in the system for them and they were doing, say, an upgrade to secret level, we would then just attach this particular application to their security file. So we would have a record and a centralized record of that individual. So I'll just go into the security files here and we'll have a quick look at what that looks like. So here we'll go in with Callan. You can see here that we have a different number of security files. And again, these are all automatically created once you're approved to a security level. And here you can see this is all relevant data for federal government level employees. But again, these are highly configurable forms and we can add and remove things as required. But here you can see that Callan in this particular case has achieved the security level of reliability. This is the department that he belongs to, his email address, his given name, his highest approved level, and any other kind of details that we have regarding Callan. We also have the ability to look at the related case files. So those would be the related applications. And we can see here that this is a reliability application. So if we ever needed to go back there for whatever reason, we absolutely could. So I'm just going to click in there and I'm going to go ahead and generate the 33047. So it's another 330 series form, but this is basically just one of those forms that actually indicates back to Callan of his successful completion of the reliability status. So you can see here that we've actually taken the same common look and feel for the government form and actually pre-populated it with Callan's name. Just so we can have a record of this particular form being filled out and it can be associated to the actual request itself. It's also there, we have attached it into the notes. So you can see here that we've gone ahead and attached it into the notes. So again, it's available should we need to have a look at it at a later date. So continuing on with Callan, we also have the ability within the context of this system to do kind of incident management. So what we see here is that Callan has been actually involved in 2 incidents in his career, both kind of culminating one day after another. So if I go down here and click on my security tab, I can go into the incident management section. So we start at the very top where we have events. So in this particular case, we have like office sweeps or on-site sweeps, or basically things that represent various events that can occur within the context of day-to-day operations. You can also see here that, you know, at the very beginning of the COVID pandemic, when it started to affect offices across the city and we were shutting down, you can see that we created one just to determine if we could use the out-of-the-box tool without any modifications to track individuals who had been exposed to that. So obviously this was before all the offices were shut down and we were trying to do some type of contact tracing, but we were able to do that. And you can see here Callan was issued isolation as of April 2nd because he had contact with an individual who had COVID. But if I go back and we'll just look at an office sweep, you can see there were 2 incidents involving that. So basically under an event, and events can have incidences and they will be listed here. Now, depending on how your organization is structured, we don't actually publish any user data on this particular page, just in case individuals need to report against events and incidents that occurred against those events, and they don't necessarily have the ability to go in and see the individuals who are related to those events. We also have the ability then for people who do have the access to go in and actually view the event, and then that way they actually get the individual who was involved in that event. So we do have that really kind of complex security model in the back end that can be configured to basically represent how you, do business on a day-to-day basis. Finally, within the context of incident management, we do have the ability to record the measures taken. So in this particular case, since a protected A document was available on a desk, we just issued a reprimand because a protected A document, you know, is basically an email that has no kind of detailed information in it, like a SIN number or anything like that. So finally, if I go back now to this case file, the security file for Callan, We can see along that we record the incidents that he was involved in. We also have the concept of aftercare. So for those in the federal government space, there is the concept of the MAF reporting that you are responsible for at various periods throughout the year. For everybody else on the call, effectively, these are just activities that are involved regarding the security adjudication and what has to happen for individuals and what the responsibilities of the departments are for. So we took one of the examples from the MAF, and I think it was question 5 or 6 from last year, and that effectively indicates that every individual who has received a security clearance has received a security briefing. So what we do in the system automatically is create a security briefing record. So this basically gives a security officer the ability to track who has received their security status and if they have received that security briefing. And then we can actually determine when is it required by. So you can see here that Callan is quite beyond when it was required by, but we can also record when it was provided. So that way we have the ability to kind of record metrics of how we are actually meeting our MAF. And over time, we can look to improve things, and we can actually have the data to support improvements within the context of the system. Finally, we'll go to transfer requests. So currently right now, the federal government, we had an indication that basically transfer requests of security files, and that is basically if one individual worked at one particular department and they moved to another department, that security file would basically have to be physically moved over. So they would take a physical file and somebody would accompany it to the new department. So what we see in that particular case is we do have the ability, because everything is digital and electronic, we can send them electronically. Now, we have our chief architect right now working on how that is actually going to occur. There are a couple of options that are currently available, but it really determines on some of the security requirements, and we have to touch base with some of our partner departments just to make sure we make the right decision in this particular case. Some of the ways that we are envisioning that we can be done is we can actually create a file that can then go on a secure USB stick, and then that can be physically transferred. There is also the ability to actually do an electronic transfer. So that again is using an SDK and talking between two instances of the Security Plus tool. We also have the ability to support multiple departments within the context of one Security Plus tool by using what Microsoft basically calls business units. So each department would have its own unit, and basically we are just pushing statuses around within the context of the system. So that effectively is a very high level kind of take on the Security Plus tool. I am now going to just clicky up here, and I will take this down, and I will be turning this back over to Eric just to wrap things up.
Thanks, Todd. We should be popping up a slide in a second with an overview of the benefits of Security Plus. I think as Todd mentioned in his presentation, Security Plus is a cloud app. So, which is where everything is going now. I think in the next couple of years we'll see, the government is catching up with this migration to the cloud, but I think we'll see most apps like this in the cloud. So Security Plus is a government compliant security assessment and file monitoring tool, allowing hiring and security officials to become more responsive. It does the automatic generation and management of security forms, including the PSCA forms that we talked about at 33023 and 33060, but it's not limited to these forms. You can use them, you can modify them, you can add to them, whatever. The system is very flexible in that respect. It's capable of greatly expediting the reliability testing cycles. It's an integrated has an integrated security file database, eliminating the need for paper and semi-automated processes, and we see a lot of those out there. It has detailed and complete security files on all staff, leveraging advanced case management for security assessment and monitoring. It has a common security file model, allowing security files to follow the employee, in other words, being transferred between departments. And has the ability to manage all facets of departmental personnel security, including incident management and secure asset management. So as Todd mentioned, if you have any questions, we're going to be monitoring the chat. and we'll do our best to answer your questions. And I'd also mention that as part of our work with IST, that the Contract Security Modernization Project, and recent work with Treasury Board, we're now entering into a pilot phase, and we're looking for some candidate departments to work along with us to make sure that, since this is a cloud application, to make sure it meets the requirements of the Government of Canada Enterprise Architecture Review Board. So, within the next 2 months, we'll be going through that gating process to make sure that the Security Plus app will meet the higher requirements of secret and top secret.
So Daniela, I see that you were there. Do you have any questions for me?
There's a question in the chat.
Yes, sorry, I thought Daniela was there, but my screen lied to me. So we had a couple of requests saying, can we provide a copy of the slides and the recording? We can absolutely go ahead and do that. What happens with the security briefing form? Is it sent automatically to the applicant? So when you say the security briefing form, do you mean the 33047? So let me put it this way. If you do mean the 33047, which I think you absolutely do, we do have the ability to create an email and mail that to the applicant automatically. We don't do that out of the box right now, just because we are wanting to make sure that we don't step on any toes in terms of security, or whether or not that has to be a process that cannot occur automatically. What we can also do, though, is we can have a semi-automatic. So basically, once you hit a gate, we can have that security officer basically say, okay, go ahead and release the 33047. We would generate it automatically. In our particular example, you saw it generated as a DOCX. We could absolutely convert that to a PDF. We have done that for other clients, and distribute a PDF just so they can't modify it as easily.
There's a question here, Todd, on providing a copy of the recording. Yep. So we will be posting a link after this webinar and making it available.
Did anybody else have any questions, comments, or concerns for us? Oh, is there a cost to the government department for using Security Plus? Let me just pass this over to Eric.
Yeah, so good question. So if you happen to be a Government of Canada department and you're participating in the pilot, we're providing the Security Plus app at no cost to the participants in that pilot. If you're other than that sort of initial sort of promotion that we have, there is a cost to the security to get the Security Plus app. It's a server license. And in addition to that, you would need the D365 licensing. So it's primarily the licensing requirements and the costs associated with this are primarily associated with the D365 user licensing. And this type of information is available through Microsoft. And you can actually, I think if you pop up the last slide, Todd, we've got Michelle Hiver, her coordinates, and my own. So if you wanted to contact us following this webinar, we'd be happy to you may already have D365 licenses, and so we don't know your current situation. Microsoft will, of course. So if Michelle can provide you with more details on what might be involved.
Yeah, and I can just comment on that. So for there's two types of licenses. One's a case management license, which is approximately $42 per user per month, and that's for heavier users such as the hiring manager and the security officer. And then there is a light user, people that are just, let's say, applying for their security clearance, and that license is approximately $10 per user. So it's quite cost effective, and as Eric mentioned, a lot of departments already own Dynamics 365 as well for other applications.
Right, and so further to that question, so the Security Plus app itself is $10,000 for the it's a one-time server license. Recently certified by Microsoft, so it's now become available on the or access to it is now available through AppSource. So if you want more information on getting access to the Security Plus app, you can find it on Microsoft AppSource.
Yeah, and just one other comment too, it's Michelle here, is that several departments have tried to build their own security personal applications, and it is not unusual that they've spent up to $3 million doing this. So this application is of great interest by pretty well almost every department that requires it. And then again, back to what Eric was mentioning, it would be great to get going with departments that are interested or public sector clients to roll this out, because we think it's of such good value to our clients.
So Michelle, there was a follow-up question on the licensing, asking if there's a need to purchase a light license for applicants.
Yes. So if you're within the department, yeah, you would have to have a light user license. But we also have a model that departments, for instance, they don't need to do their security clearance every year. It's like every 5 years or every 10 years, depending. And so those licenses can be transferred. So it's not necessary to have everybody in your department have a license. It's just for when people require it.
And if I can add to that, there is like when applicants come to apply for a job in the government, not all of them require the light license. When they become a staff of the government, that's where the light license will come into play, because there's additional capabilities where the staff member can access their initial assessment request and keep track of their security status and so forth through the portal capability of this tool.
Yes, that's a very good point. I should have mentioned that too.
Yeah, and I see somebody saying, yeah, there's 30 million potential new applicants out there. So yeah, so that was a good question. So these would not require, these 30 million, of course, would not require a license unless the government hired 30 million people.
And that license is rolling, right? So it's really more about active licenses. So if you have 10 active kind of processes going on, each of those individuals need a license.
But I think the light license that we're referring to here is for the individual staff who for the applicant who becomes an employee of the government and still wants to access their security information right on the tool. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. If it's an employee, if it's someone that is external to the government, that person can just apply via portal.
Right, and I think to Dan Levesque's point, we are using Power Apps, so they don't need licenses for that. I think that's where we were getting a bit of confusion.
That's right.
The person coming into that portal doesn't need that license. And then there was one more that I missed. So is it just the dynamic solution, or does it include the portal component as well? It includes the portal component as well. So that portal configuration is part of the actual overall solution. It just comes in a data package in addition to a managed solution with the Security Plus tools.
And we can say that in some level of confidence for enhanced reliability. But as the app is enhanced in advance to the secret and top secret level, there'll be a central portal. And this is not confirmed, but the intent is to have a centralized portal service provided by the Government of Canada for PERSEC controlled goods and the contract security. So as the security app evolves downstream, though it will be integrating services that are going to be provided as a result of the IST modernization project. And I say that this is being looked at now. This is not. I'm not confirming that this is actually going to happen, but that's the intent of on the roadmap for this application.
So with that, are there any other questions, comments? And
We got one cool, so that's great.
I'll take a cool any day. You don't have to use the chat anymore if you're comfortable vocalizing.